In this review, I'm having a look at some new Corsair K60 keyboards. They're a lot more budget friendly, and the bullet points of this presentation is they're really good. Good afternoon, welcome back to Turbo Tortoise Tech. If you're new here, my name is Wookie and I'll be your humble reviewer as I go through the K60 Pro series keyboards. I did receive quite a lot of stock from Corsair of these new products. These have only come out in about the last 2 weeks, and these, for instance, do feature the new Cherry Viola switch, which is now 4 moving parts instead of 8. But before we get into that, just a little word on Corsair and the sort of new direction that they're going in. And I'm very behind this and what they're doing. Because these keyboards, for instance, the K60 on my left here should be about 1,500 Rand, VAT included here in South Africa. And this one on my right should be just under 2,000 Rand. That's a lot better than what they normally sort of charge for this spec and setup of keyboard. And these are quite nice, quite simple, quite straightforward. And I think it's actually quite a good move from them to bring in this level that they have. So as I said, on the left is the K60 Pro, which is non-RGB. You only have the red backlighting on this one, and then low profile keycaps. And then on my right is the K60 Pro RGB SE, which then has full length keycaps and a wrist rest as well, and then obviously all the RGB goodness. Now there are some other critical differences from their previous generation keyboards. For instance, these are just straightforward flat decks. They're also a lot more understated than their previous products. You could look at a K60 from a mile away and you knew that it was a K60, whereas this is a lot more subtle. There's a little sales logo up in the top right hand corner in these keyboards and a little K60 on the bottom left, and that's about the extent of the branding on them. Starting off with the K60 Pro Non-Rgb on my left over here, as I said, this should be literally just under 1,500 Rand here in South Africa, and that's with Cherry MX Viola switches. It's their new red switch variant, and critically, it's going from 8 moving parts to 4 moving parts, which is going to increase its longevity. Now it is a full cylinder that is moving in there, and you can start to feel it when you activate the second layer of its activation layers. So it's actually very complex what they've done. So the primary activation distance is 2 millimeters, and then there's a secondary 2 millimeter to drive it all the way to the bottom of the keyboard. And the depression rate actually increases as it gets lower. It starts off at 45 grams and it ends up at 75 grams. And with these keycaps, it actually feels completely different from these keycaps. These are double shot molded keycaps, so they are quite a bit higher quality. If you do like low profile and the look and feel of it, then it's a no-brainer, but this feels heavier. I actually got a little bit of fatigue with typing on this. Gaming, I had a really good experience on both, but I just lean in this direction here with this Pro RGB SE. This wrist rest is so nice and spongy. It is going to pick up dust and fingerprints, but because it's polyurethane, you could literally just slap some general purpose cleaner on a cloth, have it kind of be damp, and you can wipe it end to end and you'll be absolutely fine. And then when it comes to cleaning the keyboard itself, the key caps themselves obviously are removable as per usual with mechanical keyboards, but this is a flat deck, so literally just a light paintbrush and you'll clean out like 90% of the muck and grime that you will accumulate over a year's sort of worth of usage. But it's really easy to clean because of that flat deck. And the simplicity of these keyboards and their setups is why they obviously can bring through this price point, and the value and stuff that like this presents. For instance, 100 USD, like I said, I assume it's going to be about 1,800, 1,900 Rand locally here in South Africa. That's a really good price for what this is. Literally the only thing on these two keyboards that I would want to change at their price points is the kickstands are actually a little bit shallow. This is actually with it up at the moment, and if I put it down, you'll see it doesn't really change actually that much. So the kickstands are about the only thing. I would like them to be a little bit higher, personal preference thing. There is only one level, but the bottom of it is rubberized, the bottom section of it on the bottom over there is rubberized, and the low profile keycaps aren't quite as nice as the full keycaps. And as I said, this actually feels completely different, even though it's the exact same switch. The only thing I could put that down to is the keycap and the experience of using it itself. I don't think these actually travel as far because of the full keycap. These are only hitting just past the activation distance, whereas with the low profile, it goes in quite a lot further. So you're hitting that second layer of activation from these Viola switches. But critically, the price point and value that Corsair now has with these two keyboards being in the market is way more on par, and then you still get that Corsair sort of quality setup. I mean, the wrist rest on this guy, for instance, is magnetically attached. So there's these two little prongs over here are rubberized, and then on the ends of them are magnets. So the likelihood of this just suddenly detaching from your keyboard is almost 0 to none. If we just do even a test here, if I try and hold it up with the magnets in position, you'll see it doesn't fall off. Even with me shaking it and moving it, it's not going to just fall off, and everything on the bottom is rubberized, so it's going to sit where it's supposed to be on your table at all times. Another nice thing that they did as well with this thing's RGB is a lot of the functionality is now accessible directly on the keyboard. So for instance, if I want a different effect like this kind of ghosting effect, I think function 6 is the ripple effect, like that, that's all available on the keyboard. And then you can still modify its profiling and stuff in the IQ software, and you can do the same for this and do macros on different keys as per usual once again. So value is way up. Corsair tax, be damned, they have finally brought a product, reasonable, really nice product for the masses, and with the brand new Viola switch as well, so you're getting the latest and greatest in technology. All in all then, I have to give the normal one a 9 out of 10 just because the keycaps and the fatigue and depression from having the low profile keycaps. If you like a very heavy switch, then that will be ideal for you. And as I say, they do activate 2 mils into the 4mm travel, and then it's similar for this side, but you don't get that feeling because these are longer keycaps. They don't travel quite as far, so you're not getting that resistance. So it's kind of like a preference thing as well, which is nice. And the other thing that's nice is because of how they've laid it out and stuff, you can buy key sets, well, hopefully in the future, because the Viola, like I said, has only been out for a couple of weeks, so it's very fresh. So in the future, you'll actually be able to do some custom keycaps and stuff on this, and all of that for under 2,000 Rand, aluminium backplate, etc. Like, it's a good package. It's a much better package than I have seen from Corsair in recent years. Anyway, that is all we have time for today. Do hope you guys have enjoyed this review. If you have, then hit us up with a like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the flip side.